silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. Time's gone by, I've traded black dirt into clay. I thought my memories would end. One street over's now 1,000 miles away. When I close my eyes, I'm back to where I've been. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing. I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. I took a walk one street over from my home. Cracked and broken asphalt everywhere. I could have ended up just like that broken road, with a dead end in my path. Thank the Lord that I've got.
Oh, let's go ahead and bring the guys down. This is 1100 WSG. I'm U-Turn LaVern, and this is One Street Over. Rich Top Rambler singing us in, as they'll be, singing us in and having a big time at the Kilgore Station Bluegrass Festival that will be coming up in third week in May. And we'll be talking about that next Tuesday, because even though it is spring break, I am going to work a couple of days, and I'm going to work on Tuesday, St. Patrick's Day. And we're going to talk about the Kilgore Festival and Thomas Kilgore, because he was of Irish descent. So we're tying that together. Barry and Rebecca Richards are going to come in and help me with the show that day. And of course, we'll be talking real estate stuff as well, and all the things. But today, Bill Jones is in the house, and he kind of gave us a little teaser for this on Thursday last week, right?
What did I say?
Well, we were talking, honestly, we were just talking about the fact that we were having History Monday was coming up.
Oh, okay.
Because we have the one day a week, or one day a month, that we like to talk about just the history of the area, because people are intrigued by it, because we're a really interesting place. And so, as a matter of fact, I saw something about we were picked as one of the.
I saw that.
Yeah, and
I don't know what that means, but I read a little bit.
I feel like I probably shared it. I don't know. I don't share a lot of stuff, but that was one I think I shared. Yeah. Right here, it says Real Springfield was recently named one of the top 9 hidden gems to visit in the South by Style Blueprint. So that's a big deal. I mean, one of the top 9 hidden gems of the South. I mean, that's pretty stinking cool.
How many gems we got?
I don't know. I don't know, but that's cool. I thought that was really, and honestly, I've been waiting for people to kind of realize that, because they'll do.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody I talk to has moved in here. They just go on and on about that. Yeah. They just so impressed, I guess. But we have so many things we take, it's just normal for us. Take for granted. It's just. But just like tobacco things, tobacco, odor, smoke, all that. People don't know what a stripping room is. They don't know. Mm-mm. And we just assume everybody knows, and that's interesting.
Well, it's like I told you that my friends from Ukraine, when they were here, were just intrigued by the tobacco stuff. And Sasha took back a big tobacco twist with him to Ukraine. He was like, this is cool. But he didn't say it that way.
I bought one off of the eBay back a couple of years ago, tobacco twist.
Yeah.
Well, I had a picture of it. When I got it, it was that big.
Oh, how funny.
I thought, I won't do that again.
No, go out and Bernard's will fix you one.
Yeah.
Steve will do one for
they're
you.
Neat to have.
Yeah,
but anyway.
they're cool. But yeah, he's the tobacco twister local, and he teaches that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do. I'll have to get on with Julie. They advertise from time to time, and they're just dear friends, and they are always doing some kind of little thing out at their store.
Well, that's good.
And in the fall, I'm kind of thinking he does it of course, because that's when tobacco, they'd be doing tobacco, but he is somebody that can still do it, and it's a lost art. How you do the tobacco.
Oh, I'm sure it's going.
Yeah, well, it really is. Yeah. I'm sure his kiddos he's got 2 little boys coming along that are farmers. They're hysterical, but those little boys are a hoot, man. I'm telling you. But they're just, they're keeping that stuff alive. That's what I love about I love these farm stores around. I love the Bernards. I love all of them.
Yeah, I do too.
Because they're just, so many, and they're just keeping the farm stuff alive, and we need to do that
because we've been known for farming in Robinson County. It's a farm community, and gradually changing.
Yeah, well, just like back home where I'm from, and back up in Mayfield, it's a farm community, and my brother still farms, and God bless him. It's hard. It's hard to farm.
Well, I remember the woolen mill when it started. I remember reading about it anyway. Woolen mill starting in early 1900s, and they had a problem. They wanted workers, but they were pulling them off the farm, and the farmers got upset about that.
Oh, yeah.
So we had sort of a fight between merchants uptown, the woolen mills, and the farmers of who to get people to work. Yeah. And they didn't want the union in to raise the prices and all that. So it was a thing going on back then that was an interesting thing.
I'm sure. I'm sure. When you think about it, because the farmers couldn't afford to pay the union wages because they don't have that big of a profit margin when it comes right down to it. And I mean, a lot of the time, sometimes they do, but it's hard. I had a sign. We ran a roofing company for 20 years, and I had a sign in my house the entirety of that time that says the only thing more overrated than owning your own business is the joys of natural childbirth. Because it's hard. People who you ran a business, people are like, oh, you're a business owner. Oh, you have no idea because you're on call all the time. There's always something. But I don't know how we got down that rabbit hole. That's not what we're talking about.
I always said you ought to do 2 things in your life to really understand things. One is join the military, and the other is be in retail business.
Oh, yeah.
And dealing with people.
You would appreciate people
and
more,
you just don't realize how many crazy people.
Oh, that's funny.
They are just,
That's funny. Well, so I had never even thought about that, but I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, and I've never really actually worked in retail, but having to deal with people whenever you're, doing the business and roofing, it's just like we were roofing contractors. If any water got in the building that we had been on, it was our fault. And it could be the windows, it could be the flashing around your windows or around your gutters or just all the things. And so we got calls at all kinds of times, and it wouldn't have anything to do with us. And I was not sad when we finally said that's enough. But
well, not only people, problem, but meeting a payroll.
Oh my!
Ending up having a money losing month after month after month,
payroll and
hoping that things are going to improve. You come to a down period where for us it was in the spring. People paying the income tax and all that. We didn't. The sales were off the first part of the year, but you thought they're going to be better. I hope, but they should be. Yeah. But then it's very hard on you emotionally, to go through that. And
I wouldn't trade any of our experiences with business stuff for anything because it taught us so very much. But I was ready to be done. My husband and I were talking this morning about how much we love teaching. We're having just an absolute blast doing what we're doing. Yeah. And feel very blessed to be in this kind of position and doing what we're doing at this stage of life. So anyway, with that said, Bill Jones is here, and he is my dear friend and one of our chief historians in Robertson County. He won't let me call him the biggest one because there's others.
No, there's people know much more than I do. You just don't hear much from them, but they're very talented in that field. I want to read you something I put on Facebook the other day. Okay. It says, My mom signed my birth certificate. I signed her death certificate. She picked my first outfit. I chose her last. Oof. She was there for my first breath. I was there for her last. She cried tears of joy when I was born. I cried tears of sadness when she left.
Oof. Oof. Oh,
Isn't that real? Just
very
real.
real.
Oh.
Very real. I've got a dear friend that just lost her husband, and I've been thinking about her all morning, and it made me think about my mom and my dad and all that. So, man, you just gonna bring the tears out this morning, Bill.
Well, I've got some other subjects along the same line. And,
anyway.
We talk history, and a lot of articles. I write an article every week in the Robeson County Connection about Robeson County history, but sometimes I write them about things not history, but interesting things about history, but not necessarily locally. And sometimes I do that, but I enjoy doing it. I'll sit down, and I wrote one last night, and another one I started this morning. Mm-hmm. I got up at 4:00 to
get ready.
I don't know why I get up early like that, but you do too.
I do too. Yeah, we typically get up at 3:30. So typically we didn't make it up until 4 this morning because of the fog and the cold.
I usually get a little bit of the news and see the headlines, the weather, and then I go off and do something else.
But so what are we talking about today, Bill?
We're going to talk about
what
something.
Subject matter from history did you bring to us
today? A subject that I think the museums, not only ours but others, ought to look at, and that is odors. Odors that you smell or used to smell in the old days. Let's take tobacco, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
If the museum would somehow, bring real tobacco in and have the odor in the place if someone's talking about it, But some of the archaeological digs are bringing up odors, and they're studying it more now and trying to simulate those odors, like
That's interesting.
old synagogues. I was writing.
You have to drop your paper there.
I was writing an article about.
That is interesting.
Synagogues.
I hadn't even thought about that. Okay.
And you think about churches, old churches. I was in an old church a few weeks ago. Believe it or not, they wanted me to work on their organ, and we got it going. But anyway, I don't know anything about organs, but I made an attempt at it. We got it fixed. But anyway, old churches have an odor. The wood in it, if they had any carpeting, people walked on it. It's just odors there. Mm-hmm. And synagogues, that's what got me thinking about it. In the old synagogues, through the Old Testament, they burned incenses, different types of incenses and things. And I'm sure when people walked in there, they got a feeling of God being there because of the scents that they smelled. And I remember when I went to college, University of South, it was an Episcopalian church, and they had a beautiful big church there with a big organ. And, it was just, when the first time I saw it, I was just overwhelmed. And then later I got so used to it, it wasn't anything. But they all have odors. And those odors stay with you. You remember them. It's just like, you might not can remember a paragraph or a sentence you said a week ago or yesterday even, but you remember that odor. And that odor reminds you of things. And sometimes it's bad and sometimes it's good. But I sat down last night and this morning working on that, and somebody put on Facebook talking about smells and odors of the old days. And it was interesting what some of the people put. One put the biscuits grandmother was making in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And that's not anything. Well, yes, it is. Mm-hmm. And you just wake up in the morning and you go in the kitchen. And I remember I lived with my grandmother till I was 6 years old. My family did. And you'd go into the kitchen and you could smell the odors all the way back to the bedroom, and it was a fairly large house. It's built in 1850. And you could smell those odors flowing through the house. It does in my kitchen today. For some reason, it goes right straight to the bedroom. I know what's cooking in 5 minutes. But it brings back memories, old memories of grandmother, grandfather, aunts and uncles and things, just the smell of a biscuit cooking. Another one someone mentioned was tobacco curing in the fall. Now, it's not so much now because not as many people are growing tobacco like it used to. But I mean, used to is like this fog this morning. You get up and it was foggy with tobacco smoke.
The smoke in the air.
All over the place. And that smell, I can remember going off to college and leaving for a little bit, and when I came back in the fall, I'd smell that, and I thought, that's what I've been missing. You know, this is home. And so many of us have those odors stored way in the back of our memories. We don't think about it until we smell them. And you go, whoa, you know, I hadn't thought of that. It brings thoughts to, you know.
I'll tell you one, see if you've got it on your list. Corn drying.
Corn drying.
Corn drying. We have
I don't know about that.
Oh my goodness, it's the best smell ever. Because if your moisture, when you would harvest corn, if the moisture was too high, it would affect your price you to get per bushel. So at our farm, and my brother still dries corn, and at least I think he does. I'm pretty sure he does. But we had a corn dryer, and that fire, when the corn would dry, and you'd have those pink husks everywhere in the air. They'd land on your car, but it was the best smell. The sweetest smell ever. I've never smelled that. Oh, my goodness. If you know anybody that dries corn, go up there when they're drying corn. It is a unique.
Well, is it a building or a vat or what? It
is. The way we did it is Daddy was always an inventor. And, I mean, he just did all. His system was unlike anybody else's because it's like whatever worked for him, he would build it. So he had the grain bins, and this is still how it's set up with my brothers. And with my brother, and the grain bins and the augers would bring the grain down and feed it through this grain dryer, which was just this big round fire. I mean, it was like I guess it was gas fed, propane fed.
Yeah.
And it's a big round. He still has it. I'll have to take pictures of it and send it to you. And ask Ben if he dries corn this year.
Well, I've heard of people doing it, but I've never seen it.
But it's like a big round, fire. And I mean, I don't know how to describe it. My brother can tell you exactly, but yeah, I think it's a gas-fed fire, and it would have to be. Yeah. But the grain passes in behind it, I suppose, and dries that grain as it goes. And because I think he would, as he was taking it out of the big trailers after they had harvested it, they would dry it going into the grain bins. So it wouldn't be that it came out of the grain bins. It would go out of the trailers, through the dryer, into the grain bins.
I guess have a way of measuring that.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's how I'm going to have to call my brother now this morning and say, okay, exactly how does that work? But man, the smell. Oh, so good. So good. But go ahead. You're talking about that. I'm just thinking about that corn drying.
Thinking about odors and sounds will trigger all kinds of thoughts, things you never thought of or hadn't thought of in a long time. Another guy said mimeographic ink.
Yes.
And I thought, I never thought of that until now. In school, I could remember that down, from the office, that they were mimeographing, making copies.
And those papers out to us. And
yeah. And I thought, I'm glad he said that because I hadn't thought of that. And it brings a lot of memories I hadn't thought of in 50 years,
Somebody mentioned that to me the other day, and I don't know who it was. I think maybe I was talking to a fellow teacher that's my age. Yeah. And we were talking about copies and things like that, and we got to talking about the way they used to make them. And then we were talking about taking the pages and smelling them, and there were some younger teachers and going, like, what in the world are you talking about? But when they would hand us the page in school, first thing we'd do is just pick it up and put it to our face and smell it. It was just the funniest
thing. Isn't that
thing.
funny? That's so funny.
Isn't that funny? Oh, that's hysterical.
I remember that you reminded me. When I went to summer school at Middle Tennessee between my junior and senior year, because our senior years we had comprehensive exams. In other words, they gave us tests over the last 4 years of what we'd learned. And you had to pass those tests or you didn't graduate. So I took a few hours at Murfreesboro in the summer before my senior year so I could have time to study.
Right.
Well, I had an apartment in this house, and I think 4 of us were living together. But one guy in another part of the house, he was sneaking into somewhere over on campus through an air conditioner vent and getting mimeographed sheets where they made the copies of exams. And I told him, I said, what, you have to sit here all night and memorize true and false That's what he was doing. I said, why don't you just learn the thing,
Isn't that the truth?
And I thought, I never forgot that. I thought, what a waste of time.
That's too funny.
Anyway, okay.
Too funny.
Somebody mentioned summer rainfall. Have you ever been outside in the spring or summer and it's cool in the morning and it's raining? There's an odor to that. There's a smell to the rain.
Smells like rain.
I don't know how to describe that, but
how about the smell of dirt and tractors?
Well, that's another one. Yeah.
I mean, there's a unique because
there's a difference between mud and the dust.
You know, believe it. There's a very distinct smell when they would take in. Because I mean, again, I grew up on a working farm.
Yeah.
And when they would turn that soil to plant in the spring, no mistaking that smell of dirt and tractors.
I'll write that down.
Dirt and tractors. And see, one of the reasons I have mimosa trees everywhere, and you either love them or you hate them because they're very invasive, but I absolutely adore them because I would sit up in the mimosa tree on the edge of our cornfield and watch my daddy farm.
Yeah.
Because I was a daddy's girl, big time. And I would sit in that tree and watch him farm. And
your name wasn't Zacchaeus, was it?
Huh?
Your name wasn't Zacchaeus, was it?
No, but
in the Bible, remember he got up in the sycamore tree.
But I wasn't Zacchaeus. No, I was way too big for Zacchaeus. But I would sit in that mimosa tree, and that's why I have so many of them, because that smell of those. If you've ever been around mimosa trees, sweet, just wonderful smell when they're in bloom. Just adore them. But you just really got me going down.
I knew I would.
Lane,
I knew I would.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. This is everybody who lived on a farm or even some time back is wood burning stoves and fireplaces. We used to sell at Furniture Center wood. Well, my dad had Henry and Bell Incorporated, a big building up on Main Street. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But we sold wood stoves. And I don't know how many I delivered because they're heavy and set up with the pipes and everything, but the smell of a wood burning stove was just very unique, and fireplaces too, because you could tell what kind of wood they were burning just by smelling it. Was it cedar? Was it oak? Whatever, and it permeate through the house. All the odor of it, and probably a little smoke too. But I thought that was interesting.
Well, it's so funny because we just put in a fireplace, and but we
gas
fireplace because the practicality of it. But I've talked my husband into we've got a little corner where we can put a small little wood stove. And I said, I really want just a little wood stove, just because I love the smell of wood.
If somebody's an inventor out here listening, if they'd invent a thing that would produce odor, a little thing that would produce a little odor of wood burning, it makes a big difference to you. I can sit in front of a gas fireplace and it's nice to look at, but you don't have the odor there like you used to.
Yeah.
And I think it's a coming thing. I think odors are going to be produced. I just think the archaeologists are doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be something in the future.
Well, they try to do it with candles and things like that.
Yeah, that doesn't
so
work.
much.
It's so artificial.
Yeah, for sure. But I still think I'm going to get like a little wood burning stove just so I've got that.
Yeah.
So, and plus too, there's nothing like the warmth you get from that.
Right.
And so I just that's something that's on my bucket list still to fix in our house. But anyway, keep on. We're talking with Bill Jones.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. But we're talking to Bill Jones about historical things that you remember, and today it's all about the smells, and I love that. What a cool thing. But let's go ahead and pause. Let me do my break for Barry and Rebecca Richards. And as I said, they're going to be in on Tuesday next week to talk specifically about the Kilgore Station Bluegrass Festival because, as we mentioned, Thomas Kilgore was Irish. He was of Irish descent. So we think that's appropriate. And they're also going to just talk to you about the latest, about the fact that the real estate market's starting to heat up. More people are listing houses. It's that it just comes along with spring. And they've got a listing right now. Barry's got one that's up here at 458 Laramie Drive here in Springfield that's listed under $300,000, 3-bed, 2-bath, and I mean I know that sounds like that's a good price. That's a really good price out there in the real estate market today. But he has that one. If you go to Rebecca's Facebook page, one of the last things that she had listed was up in White House. She had a listing in White House. This is at 310 Cardinal Drive in White House. But you need to just follow them and check their listings all the time because they're always getting new stuff. It is with interest rates down a little bit, housing prices are going to go up a little bit. That's just what happens. Barry's always getting asked, is it a good time to buy? He goes, yes, it's always a good time to buy because interest rates, if they're high, housing prices go down. If interest rates are low, housing prices go up. It's just the way it is. It just always balances out. But you got to know how much house can you buy. Got to get pre-qualified if you're going to get out there on the market. If you're selling a house, you got to know how much a house is worth because one thing that'll keep your property just sitting still is if you've overpriced it. I don't care how much you think it's worth, what they've told you it's worth until you've done a market analysis, you're not going to know. And if you ask too much for it, you may find a buyer, but unless they have cash in hand, you're not going to be able to find a lender that's going to be able to finance that. So those are the kinds of things you need to have answered before you even come to the table, either side of the table. And if you want to be a realtor, you'll find none better to mentor you into the real estate game than Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. You can Google them and find out all about them. Or you can go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or buy, B-U-Y, robertscounty.com. Give them a call, 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425 or 7424, and let them know you turned sent you. Back to Bill Jones talking about the scents and smells of our history and the ones that just, that we have still to this day. Like I said, I have the mimosa trees everywhere, but they take me back. They take me back in time,
The unfortunate thing about odors, it can take you back to bad times.
That is true,
and,
unfortunately, yeah.
You can't hardly do much about that. We'll get into that in a little bit later, but I think I got more information than I can cover
well,
today.
I'll shut up. You keep going.
Anyway, tobacco stripping rooms.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people moving in here don't know what that is. And, when they cut tobacco, they cure it. They put it in a barn and have sawdust on the floor, and they light the sawdust and have it smoldering, and it cures the tobacco out with the smoke. Then they take it out of there and go into usually an attached room to the barn, and they strip it off the stalks. And they do probably a little grading then too, I guess. But anyway, that's what a stripping room was. You don't take your clothes off. You just strip the tobacco off the sticks. So anyway, the smell of that. And of course, when you're working with that, when you come into the house, you have that smell on you. That's hard to get off. It just doesn't go away. And then some people are allergic to it, and they have to go to bed smelling it, and it's rough for them. Another person mentioned fresh jam. People used to make jam a lot, and some still do, but the smell of the fresh jam, straw. You think about fresh straw. When I was a kid, we'd love to go in the barn and just jump out the top on some straw. It was so much fun. The dust of it and everything, you just rolling around and jumping in it and all that, the straw. Even strawberries. I remember when I think of that, I think of a farm. We used to go out to just the edge of town here, about around where you live, and they had a strawberry patch, and we'd go out and pick strawberries, and it had an odor, strawberries did, and it was a pleasant odor to me. Hot coffee, for instance, when somebody has hot coffee brewing in the kitchen, it gives you a homey sense, I'm home with the hot coffee. And again, fresh cut hay, not the old hay it's laying in the barn, but fresh cut hay has a different odor to it. One person mentioned honeysuckle. Well, if you're out in the country, you're going to see a lot of honeysuckle, and you can taste it. We used to pick it, and the little center part was sort of sweet, and so it had an odor, a smell, honeysuckle.
I can remember doing that a lot.
One woman says, I remember, brings me back, cleaning with bleach in the house, and I never thought of that.
I still do that because it's just I just feel like it's clean.
Then when you smell bleach, you think cleaning. You think of back home. One of the favorite ones of mine, when I was a little kid running around the neighborhood, we had cap guns, and those caps had an odor to them.
Yes.
And you never forgot it.
Oh, I forgot it. I mean, I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
But we all
still get a cap gun.
I don't think so. I don't think you can get the caps. I mean, I guess you could order them somewhere, but I don't see them in stores.
I don't either. I don't think I do either. Or they're different. But those cap guns with those little
red
rolls.
Little red roll with little round caps on them, and then the gun would hit the cap and make a pop.
What was in that? Was that like actual
little powder?
Powder?
Yes, I assume so. But they all had the same odor.
The things we played with,
but we didn't go out and shoot anybody, but we had little cap pistols on a holster we wear, and we played cowboys and rode around and shot at each other, bang, 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 and it didn't affect any of us that I know of, but nowadays they say, oh, you can't do that,
I'm just looking up to see if you can find a cap gun now with the little, it's
and
different.
Another thing that
anything like what we had.
A lot of us remember, and you do too, is leather saddles and leather straps and things like that. The odor of the leather in the horse barns, say, or in barns, had a different odor, and we even back in the early 1900s, we had leather shops here. We had one going down the hill on North Main, I remember, on the left. It was a leather shop. They made harnesses, and they made horse products, saddles, and things like that. And there's still people around that work with leather, and it has that odor. It's just very distinctive, I remember going to Gatlinburg and seeing some shop that made leather stuff, and it had that leather. I mean, it's like a cowboy smell, an outdoor. Well, I don't know if it would be for me outdoor playing with my friends with the cap guns and all that. But the leather just gave you a different thoughts about things.
There's a place down in Mexico. The backpack I carry is a full leather backpack that I got in Mexico. Yeah. And you walk in their store, and it's like they obviously are crafting it.
I think now I remember I went up in Kentucky to Schambach's or somewhere up there. They had a whole big room full of leather products, and I thought the odor. I thought, man, it must be neat to work around this all the time.
I guess you'd get accustomed to it though, but it's very distinct.
Remember another smell I remember was sawdust in the barns. You'd have sawdust so you could put it in the back of the barn to get it to smolder. But there was always seemed like a pile of sawdust around. I don't know why, but there always was.
Well, because if you're dealing with oils or anything like that, I mean, there's just so many uses for sawdust.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know what you do with it.
If you're doing some maintenance on a vehicle or something, tractors. If there's an oil spill, you'd throw some sawdust down.
I wonder why that was always around.
Oh yeah. It was great. Of course, they use cat litter now, but
they do
a lot of the times.
I got a lot of it.
But
wish I didn't.
Yeah, sawdust was, and still, I mean, if you're in shops and stuff like that, it's my Mark hangs on to sawdust for that reason. Just to absorb oil and things.
Well, people who always live in the city don't know much about sawdust, I think. Also, horse feed. That has an odor that you don't feel anywhere else. And, of course, you can go to some of the places that have feed, and it sort of brings back memories when I walk in one of those places. Doris, I was thinking of.
And walk in there.
Walk in there, and you have all these odors that bring back a lot.
It's different, though, if it's a place that's actually milling. And because we had a mill. Yeah. Because, like I said, my daddy did all kinds of wild things, but he would do he would take and do his grain and mill it together. We had a feed mill up in the top of the old dairy barn we had, where he would make his own feed for the hogs. Now, you talk about tobacco getting on your clothes. You ought to have a hog farm. That smell.
Well, that has an odor.
Oh, my goodness.
And it gets in your clothes.
I grew up on that. I mean, I grew up with that. My dad, I can't begin to tell you how many times my dad would come out of the, whatever he was doing, and he'd been in the barns at some time and had that smell of hogs on him. And he'd take a shower and go to church, and you could still smell it. I mean, because you can't get it off. And my mother'd be like, "You still smell like pigs." And
You ever heard of Freddie Edwards Road? It's up north, Youngville. Anyway, Freddie and I went to school together, and Freddie raises. I don't know if he still does, but he raised hogs. Yeah. And I said, Freddie, how do you stand that odor? He says, smells just like money.
That's what Daddy used to always say. In the 70s, it did big. Because, when we raised hogs is when you could make a lot of money on them. Now, once they got to where you couldn't make any money, they got rid of the hogs. Right. But Daddy and my brother were always good at seeing what was going on and going, okay, time to move on and do something else. And so they got rid of the hogs.
Those are the kind of people that are successful, that learn to move.
Sure. Yep. They would adjust.
Another odor that somebody mentioned, and it brought back bacon frying in a iron skillet.
We still do that.
In an iron skillet.
Oh,
People don't do that
I have
anymore, but it has a different odor.
I have my grandmother's iron skillet.
Well, I got some old ones.
Yeah,
it's just.
I know for a fact this was my grandmother's, and
that's an unusual comment, to think of that. But another one, a guy said, a Dial soap. Dial's been around a long time.
Yes, it has.
My daughter worked for she lives in California, and she worked for a skin doctor did facelifts and things like that. And she said, you wouldn't believe a soap company, I guess I better not mention the name, but that would pay him to recommend that brand of soap. And he said, they made pretty good money off of that. And he'd say, this is the kind of soap you need to use now. And you think about that, and I was in a store today thinking about that brand. I said, that brand's name is on every kind of soap of whatever they have for your face, your body, anything, and they've really got the market cornered, But I didn't think about doctors, but anyway, that was the case. Another one mentioned laundry smell in the basement. We had our washer and dryer in the basement growing up, and there was an odor back in that room where the washers and dryers were. You smell the detergent. One big thing to me is old books. I love the smell of old books. In fact, I have a bunch of old books. It's 1800s, my grandmother's, and I keep them in a place where the odor won't go away. And I like that. And it's a musty smell.
Oh, yeah.
But it's an old smell, too. And I remember when I first went to college, I found the library that had old books in it. And the funny thing, I love reading the old stuff, and I read about a church in England that they got in an argument about their chandelier, and they split up. And one would believe in chandeliers and one didn't. And then there was another church I read about that they got in an argument of whether Adam and Eve had navels. And they split up, and one of them created a church called the Church of the Navalites, First Church of the Navalites.
That's hysterical.
I thought, golly, people.
That's for real?
That's off topic here.
That's hysterical. That's hysterical.
Sound, now also not only odors, but sounds. When you come back here and you've been gone a long time and you hear the town clock, that will ring a bell.
For sure.
That is something that you don't hear anywhere else like that. It has a tone that's not like it anywhere else.
And you just don't see them very much anymore either.
They didn't put that town clock up there until 1929 when they remodeled the courthouse. So it's been going, and they've had some issues with repair.
We're coming up on the 100th year of the bell. We need to do something on that.
Well, that might be a good idea.
That's a few years out.
They used to have a hand crank. Jim Ball's got the hand crank, but they'd go up and crank it. Had to crank it once a week or whatever.
He worked on the clock for a long time, didn't he?
Yeah, he worked on that clock.
Yeah, the one that's now, because that was something really surprising.
If you don't have
We're talking about Smoky Barn, if you not.
That's electronic. It's electronic where it's, but it's still got the old works and everything. It's just amazing.
Okay.
Then the sirens. I remember as a kid, we had, it was left over from World War II, and when I was in first, second, third grade, they teach us to duck under the desk and all that because of atomic bomb maybe or something from somebody, Russia or somebody, But they'd have a siren warning. It was on the high school, well, middle school now. And at noon, it went off every noon. And that was something I always remembered, that siren.
Well, I can imagine. That would be a little bit terrifying, that would be one of those things from your childhood that. Whoop.
Well, back in the old days, when they had a fire, they had a bell, and they would ring that bell before sirens, and they would have a big bell. Somebody'd come to town. And of course, the town wasn't very big, and they'd ring this bell, and then the volunteers would come in and go to the fire. Of course, you didn't have a hard time spotting it because the town was small. So they would have to get the horses in one place and the little fire thing at another, and get them together and then go to the fire. So it was a town activity. All the men would run and, take care of it. Anyway, I was reading this morning that says odors directly stimulate the brain limbic system. I never heard of that, limbic system. But It is connected to our instincts and moods, which can control our basic emotions such as fear, pleasure, anger, and drives. That's what odors do. And if we have had a good childhood, we have good odors, and it reminds us of that. But if you didn't have a good, say you didn't have enough food, there'd be a different kind of odor. And of course, the odors of bacon frying would be really a great impulse off if you were hungry and didn't have enough food. Also, stress from bad odors. Bad odors can give you stress, causing warning signs concerning safety and survival. Also, social behavior and learning ability. So you have to have kids in school that are affected by bad odors. They'll have a learning disability because of that. And to understand that, I think as a teacher, would help to better understand where the student's situation is while they're not learning. Intense emotional memories and memory anchors. There are memory anchors that anchor you to, I am this way because of my feelings of the odors and the sounds I heard before. So it can be very sensual, odors and sounds, and it gets into much more than you ever thought about if you ever start thinking about it.
Well, when you start talking about PTSD and things like that for soldiers.
Thinking in war, you hear the explosions. You see a certain flash, and, it does, and it sticks with you for life.
Well, and there's, they have PTSD was something that they always would always connect to military service, but there are children that have been through terrible traumas. Right. People who've been through terrible traumas, if they were abused or they've been
beat up,
after
school,
anything like that. If you've been through some trauma, that can come in, and a smell can set it off, a sound can set it off. Right. I've had
gives you an emotional.
I've seen it happen to people that they just suddenly just are, a little
fight or flight, thing.
Yeah, so, and they get a little panicked, and it's something like a sound or a smell that can set it off.
Well, it happens in dogs,
Well, yeah.
I got my neighbor has a lot of dogs, and I love feeding them treats. Mm-hmm. And so I go to this fence, and I feed them treats, they're wagging their tail and they're barking at me. One time I thought, well, I'll just throw one at them. Well, this one dog, he took off. You could tell he was scared to death. The minute I raised my arm like that, I thought, well, I can't do that. He's been, and my neighbor found him in an abandoned house. Yeah. And he had been mistreated. Yeah. And that's, I thought, well, how do you get an animal over that? And it's not easy.
Very hard. I've rescued a lot of animals.
They're going to have that memory.
You better believe
it. Somebody raising their hand. Because I did it before another time. I just raised my hand like that, and he just, he took off. Yeah. He's looking back at me like he was scared to death. Uh-huh. But we are like that too. We don't even know sometimes, I think, why we do what we do. Right. Why we're afraid. Maybe we're afraid of public speaking because we said something stupid in public. Oh, me. But anyway, it brings up so many things and how we're made up and how we are, and brings us back to our beginnings and our parents. And I remember somebody mentioned Grandpa's car. They were talking about Grandpa's car had an odor. And older people have different odors than younger people do.
My grandpa smoked cigars, so yeah, very definitely. Yeah.
I remember Joe Mack Lipscomb Jr. and I were the same age, and we would go to basketball games, and his daddy, Joe Mack Sr., drove his car. Well, it wasn't any air conditioning in the 50s, wasn't any air conditioning. So Joe Mack Sr. Chewed tobacco all the time. Uh-huh. So if we had anybody new riding with us, we'd put them in the back seat behind him, because when he spit out the window, it'd come back through the back window. It was open.
That's what you're going to say.
So we'd laugh about it because we wouldn't tell them. Laugh about it.
That is awful.
Anyway, I can remember the odor of him chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Let me pause you for a second. Yeah, Lee Marie's got something up that I definitely want to mention this. They have got, today they're doing a 1 p.m. bingo. They do bingo at the library at 1 on Mondays. And so today you're going to have a chance to get Susan Hunter's latest book, The Greatest Generation. The Greatest Generation. I don't know if you've met Susan. She's phenomenal. Her mother, when she had Alzheimer's, they discovered all these letters she had written to a Vietnam soldier. Just beautiful. Just a beautiful book. Well, she has another book that she's put out called The Greatest Generation. Just a wonderful story. But so we remind you about that today. That's at 1 o'clock. Come play bingo and pick up Susan's latest book, The Greatest Generation. And she says, pick up your free copy of The Greatest Generation. So I don't know what all that's about, but come and check that out with Lee Marie today at the library. And also, too, if you want to meet Matt Van Epps, our new representative, he will be at the TFA for the Irish potluck tonight at 6 p.m. at the American Legion, Post 45 in Greenbrier. And again, this is Representative Van Epps, Matt Van Epps, going to be at the Robertson County Tennessee Firearms Association meeting tonight for an Irish potluck at 6 p.m. at the American Legion. So good stuff. Thank you, Lee Marie, for those updates.
It reminds me, March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. I wrote an article about it. It'll be in the paper on that day, but it's interesting. St. Patrick, that wasn't his name. And green wasn't a thing. It was blue back then. But anyway,
I've read his story.
Okay.
It's quite fascinating because he was taken prisoner and all this. People don't realize, people don't realize his story, but it's quite fascinating.
It is.
Very fascinating.
So, I write stuff like that had nothing to do with Robertson County, but I'll stick them in there on
very
those
interesting,
special days. Anyway, back to the odors. Archaeological digs now are finding odors. They're finding jars, bottles, perfumes, and incenses they used in old synagogues and things like that bring back. Now we know what it smelled like in mummies, embalming mummies, and in synagogues and things like that. But another odor I thought about this morning was distinctive to me. It was funeral homes. Smell like flowers. Every time I smell flowers, I don't want
those flowers. I think more than anything, don't you?
Yeah,
I think it's the flowers because I have the same. I wouldn't hardly go in a funeral home when I was a kid.
Oh, me either.
I wouldn't go near them. But and I love that we have our memorials now, our celebrations of life in churches and places like that. And of course, now my parents, both of theirs were in funeral homes, but because that's what they wanted. But
well, that just brings us back to odors can connect us to historical objects.
Oh yeah.
And tonics. I bought some off eBay the other day. I found some from some of the stores here in town, and I bought them and stored them away. But they had tonics for everything back, 100 years ago.
Tonics.
T-O-N-I-C-S. Bottles of something, whatever it was.
Yeah. I've got some old bottles that are old tonics that my granddaddy had and different things that I
find them occasionally around places.
I've got like an old blue bottle that's I think, I don't know what I've done with it. I'm getting rid of a lot of stuff like that because I'm like, why am I keeping this? My kids don't want this.
Look at my things.
I'm starting to get rid of stuff because I'm seeing now that my children are adults, they're married, got kids, they don't want it.
Right.
And if they don't want it, I'm getting rid of it. And so, because that's one thing I saw with mom and daddy stuff, going through their stuff, how much that people, that keep the things that mean something. And if they don't, just get them out of the house.
Well, these odors that we smell connect us to historical things like tobacco, like books, like tonics, like medicines that they used to, I can still smell some of the stuff my mother gave me. Anyway, COVID.
Paper rub.
COVID. Now, what did COVID do for us? COVID killed our odor, our smell. You didn't appreciate your ability to smell until you had COVID, and you say, well, I can't smell anything.
So I don't know that I ever had COVID because I never experienced
I
that.
had 3 times. I had 3 shots.
I don't know that I ever had it. I feel like I probably did at some point, but I never really knew I had it. But anyway.
Until they remodeled a courtroom up on the courthouse, it had an odor, a courthouse odor in the courthouse rooms. They were, whatever it's made of, it's got this odor. The old Henry and Bell building, which is uptown on Main Street, my father bought that business in 1957, the Henry and Bell furniture, from Mrs. Bell, and it's still the same way as it was. The old wood floors and the walls and the ceilings are the same. And it has that odor. especially down there around the old elevator. It's in the back corner. It had an odor, I remember as a kid, a machine odor, because that thing is over 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
The elevator is, the motor. But that building, and there's not many buildings left, if any, in town that have still the old way about them. When you walk in them, you can smell them.
Some of the ones that are like antique shops and things like that, you walk in them and you still kind of have that feel.
Yeah, you do.
And even aspects of the museum, they're a place, you know what I'm saying? When you go into the museum because of the old post office, that's the ones I like to go to because they still have that kind of
That's where I'm thinking
feel.
They ought to have something, find out where you can get odors. You can buy them or something,
True.
And I saw a guy selling snow one time. He was selling snow in a bottle. This is when we had 2 feet of snow, and I got it in a bottle, and or stuff like that. I thought that's the silliest thing I ever saw. But odors enhance your way of thinking. And if you gave a talk about tobacco and you had it there where people could smell it, and it'll enhance the story that you're telling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people, historians and museums and things, ought to look into that of getting odors, maybe the old perfumes. I've got a box of aftershave my dad used, and I used it one time, and it brings memories memory of him in the morning shaving and putting that aftershave on.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I kept it.
Yeah.
I got the box of it. So all of these things connect you with your emotions. Your emotions get stirred up, and sometimes it makes you cry even, And even when you lose a pet, I was talking to somebody yesterday that lost a pet and just tore them all up. And I said, that's the reason my last dog died. I didn't get another one because he'd probably outlive me. But anyway, I can't stand the death of an animal anymore. It's just so hard. I never forget it. I smelled the veterinarian when I took him there to have him put to sleep and all that.
Well, see, that's probably one of the things about being a born and raised farm girl is animals. You have a separation between animals. I've gotten this thing with cats the other day. I've gotten some new cats, and my kid showed me this hat he wanted to get me that said "Cat Mom." I'm like, I ain't that cat's mama. I'm their owner. You know what I mean? I have a different. I am not as attached to animals as most people are. Because
I am.
You couldn't
I get
be.
very attached to
You
them.
couldn't be growing up around animals and when you do slaughter and all that.
My neighbors got dogs, which I love them.
And I love my dogs.
I know each name, and each one the individual personalities.
Yeah.
And I talk to them like I talk to anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he gets tickled at watching me do it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Now they're not bothering you." I said, "No. I said, let them out of the fence if you want to. I don't think they'd bother me, but they just a happy bunch,
Well, and I love dogs. I love dogs. I love cats.
Oh, I do too.
I enjoy them, but it's a different relationship when you grew up.
Well, it is.
With having to slaughter animals and things like that.
Yeah. Well, they ought to have a scent archives, and I think they're beginning to do this in archaeology. I think they're starting to have saving scents in our archives, but that'd be interesting to do locally. Especially the tobacco sort of going away, and whiskey. I wish I had the old
turnabout though.
I wish I had the old Woodard whiskey formula, but that Woodard's on my side of the family, but I always wanted that. And I asked around, I couldn't find it anywhere. But the way they made whiskey, I remember going down to Jack Daniel's distillery down in Lynchburg, and they had a big vat there of mash, and they said, just lean over and get a good whiff of that mash, and I did. It like to burnt my. It was all alcohol, Oh, it took my breath away, But I never forgot the odor. But we could have an odor archives.
I think so.
We could. It wouldn't be big.
How would you do it? So
somebody could figure that out.
Yeah. Keep going. We've still got some. We got some time here. We get some
that's
your stuff.
I'll talk about a little bit. I've got the next week article in the paper coming out about noon wasn't always noon. And then I'm going to write one on the old Colonial Hotel.
Okay.
which I've had some pictures on Facebook of it, and most of the pictures have a 2-story building. It was a white, big hotel on the corner of 5th and Main, where there used to be First National Bank there, now it's agricultural something, I think. But anyway, then they added a 3rd floor to it. And I know I've got a picture of the hotel with 3 floors, but I hadn't found it yet. But that was a unique place. And when I was a kid, I remember going in there. It had an odor. The first odor I remember is a barbershop. When you go to the left, there was a barbershop. And there was a beauty shop there called the Beauty Box. And that had an odor, they have today,
yes.
big odors.
They still do.
But I remember in the first grade, the Dairy Queen came to town down on North Main, on the right as you start going down the hill. And there was a girl in my class called Zorita Lawing, and her daddy owned the Dairy Queen. And we thought, we need to know Zorita. But Zorita and her mother and daddy lived in the Colonial Hotel for a while. They moved to town here, and they had one of the first Dairy Queen franchises here. And every so often, the teacher, I went to Main Street School, which is where the center is now. Mm-hmm. The teacher would walk us down to the Dairy Queen down North Main, and we get free ice cream cones from Mr. Lawing and come back. And I thought, and they would, when they were walking, they would teach us things. They'd teach us how to look at a stoplight, and when it's red, you don't, you go, it's green, you don't walk across red, you can. And I remember them teaching that.
So where was the first Dairy Queen? If you could walk from the center. And
you know where the building, there used to be the Coca-Cola plant. Mm-hmm. You remember that? As you go down North Main, it's on the right. It's now they make Christmas trees and stuff.
Oh, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. There was a field to the left of it, but they built a building on it. But the next one down is the Dairy Queen. And the building is still there. Looks like sort of a, type of Dairy Queen building, and a man lives there. But that's where it was.
So the Dairy Queen building is still there.
Yeah, the building is. Yeah.
Oh, now I'm going to go
It's
down
been
there
remodeled, and somebody lives in it. But anyway,
interesting.
And they later moved when Memorial Boulevard was built in 1957. He moved one of the first places that moved on to Memorial Boulevard, and it was what is there now? There's a Blue Roof, I guess Chinese restaurant or something. And it's right
Blue Roof.
To the left.
You're talking about the one that's we call that Blue Roof.
To the north of it was where the Dairy Queen was, and you could go in and sit down. Now the Dairy Queen in North Main, you just had to walk up. There wasn't any place to go in.
Okay.
But this one, you had to go in and sit down, and pretty neat, And
okay.
That's. I don't know how I got off Dairy Queen, but anyway, the Colonial Hotel is what I was talking about. Yeah. And I remember on the right was a little grill. It was called the Corner Grill. And people, of course, back in the 50s, there was no place to go to eat lunch. I mean, they didn't have commercial places to go to, and Corner Grill was it. Mm-hmm. And sometime after church down in Springfield Baptist down on North Main, people would go to Corner Grill on Sunday and eat lunch. And I remember a very distinctive incident I had there. There was, we had what we call RAs, Royal Ambassadors in the church, and just boys, And Bob Lawrence was the man in charge of it. He was paid by the church there, but he would take us boys up to the Corner Grill and eat. And one time, one of them challenged me. He said, "You think you can get out here without paying?" I said, "I think I can do it." And I did. We got out without paying. And we were sitting in the car out waiting for Bob to come out, laughing about it. And he heard us because we had the windows down. And he made me march back in there and confess to what I did and pay him. I never did that again.
I bet you didn't.
So anyway, on the other side, the north side of the building, was a bus station. And it was called Central Bus. And then they changed it to Greyhound Bus Station. And that's what we called it. The Greyhound Bus Station was the name of it, and that's what we called it. And they had a little area there that people walked inside and got their tickets, and then the bus would pull under an awning there. And on past it was a tobacco place on going down the hill. But the bus station I wrote an article about that one time. It had many locations in Springfield, but that was the one that lasted the longest. And the buses, I have pictures of the old buses and everything. It's very unusual looking, small.
There's so much we could talk about.
Air conditioned.
We're out of time.
Okay.
The clock is off the wall. We were trying to reset the clock and realized it was an automatic one, so we didn't get it reset. And so I was just sitting here looking, and because we don't have the clock on the wall, Bill and I both were just sitting here talking, and I looked down and I was like, oh, it's 8:01. It's time to go. Thank you, Bill.
Yes, ma'am.
For joining us. It's always interesting when he comes in for our History Mondays. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you'll join me tomorrow. Dr. Danny Weeks will be in here. It'll be a chance for us to talk to our director of schools. So I hope you'll be a part of it right here on 1100 WSGI. God bless you. Have a great day.